Guys, welcome to Crypto Insight. I've been a professional options trader for 20 years, and about a year ago, I switched my focus from equity options to crypto options. Why? Because of the huge volatility and opportunity in the space. Trading Bitcoin has allowed me to multiply my capital in a safe way. And in these videos, I will give you the benefit of my experience and insight into how I'm reading the crypto vol market and using options to either hedge or speculate on future expected moves in the crypto space. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope you find this content useful. Thanks. So what's going on in crypto this week? Well, Bitcoin, it certainly started moving again. You know, having been relatively low vol and range bound and not doing much, you had a series of tweets starting with Tesla no longer accepting Bitcoin as payment for their cars. And that was due to the environmental impact of mining for Bitcoin. That's what he claimed was the reason, but a bit surprising that he didn't realize that when he first bought Bitcoin last year. So I think that's just a bit of propaganda or a bit of signaling. He may well be having various issues with Tesla and try to get on various, get various subsidies or whatever it is for the ESG, the whole ESG thing, and claim that Tesla's, all about ESG, but then there's a major contradiction in that if he turns around and sits on a load of Bitcoin that is arguably not that environmentally friendly or ESG. So I think that's probably the motivation there for him to move away from that story. Now, also, now clearly the Bitcoin community doesn't like it when you say anything bad about Bitcoin. So he got a big backlash on Twitter, and he had a bit of a Twitter meltdown, suggesting that Tesla might just dump all of their Bitcoin, which was then later clarified as not the case. But whatever's the case or whatever's true, it sent shockwaves through the market, right? So it obviously it smashed Bitcoin down from mid 50s down to low 40s. So, 20-25% sell off there. But it also had a pretty big impact on the altcoins as well. So Ethereum, which has been having a blockbuster run, even that got whacked, right? So Ethereum, I had a support level around 3250, which seems to be kind of respected. If you look at the 4-hour bars, hasn't really closed significantly below that level yet. But the point is that there's been a decent amount of de-risking in the whole crypto space. And it seems like his comments were the trigger and the catalyst. And that's how that played out. I don't know what the liquidations were on the on the straight delta, but there was a hell of a lot of liquidations in options land, right? So if you look at the liquidations that happened in Deribit, which is the most liquid exchange, which is the biggest exchange for options in crypto, then you can see, if I share it here. So this kind of shows the number of options, like the liquidations that went on Deribit, right? And you can see back in March 20, when obviously Bitcoin had a ridiculous sell-off, like 40%, 50% overnight, there was a bunch of liquidations, as you'd expect. But it turns out that this time round, just on this latest sell-off, there's been more liquidations on Deribit than back in last March, which I found really surprising, yeah? So that just something to kind of flag there. So what did that do? So that was obviously people getting caught short puts, right? Or short optionality, getting overly leveraged, and then being forced out of it basically by the exchange, right? Because you run out of margin and you get liquidated automatically. Okay. So what happened in terms of the vol surface in Bitcoin? Probably the best way to show it is the term structure here. Here, a week ago was the orange line, right? So you had short dated vol trading around 70, mid-range vol trading in the high 70s. Things were pretty calm, pretty benign. And then yesterday, at the highs in vol, we were basically up here, right? So you had short dated vol at 120, you had, and the more mid-range vol at like 115, which that's an enormous jump. That's a 50 vol point jump in the front end, basically, okay? So, you know, in 1 week options, it kind of doesn't matter, right? On a 1 week basis, yes, vol can jump by 50 and it can stay there because the market's just had a ridiculous move, right? But on a 1 month basis, like if we talk, not even 1 month, like more than 1 month basis to June options, for June options to go from 77 to 118, that's the wrong price, yeah? Because, I mean, that's my personal view, right? But I don't think Bitcoin is going to realize enough over the next month to justify that level of volatility, right? So that is happening because of a liquidation, because of a positioning squeeze, because of a panic, and that has driven that vol to astronomical levels, okay? And actually, if you look at where it is today, it's already collapsed by 10 vol points from yesterday. So the market kind of agrees with me, yeah? So I reckon over the course of the next week or two, that entire term structure is going to revert back. Maybe it doesn't get quite back down to 70 odd, but for it to get back into the 80, 90 region from 110, 120, that I think is very, very realistic, okay? So for me, the people who have managed to keep their powder dry and not lose a load of money on that sell-off, thankfully, I'm in that camp, yeah? I was actually long the May puts, the 50,000, the 48,000 puts in Bitcoin as protection to my portfolio. I've monetized those at decent levels, right? In that sort of anywhere between 44 and 42 area on Bitcoin. That's when I started monetizing those. I've replaced them with risk reversals because the vol's so elevated now. I don't just want to buy outright puts as my protection anymore because the vol's not cheap. So I've done risk reversals in 28th of May and 4th of June to maintain some protection, okay? But I'm comfortable that in the very, very short term, let's say in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I don't really see Bitcoin breaching 56, 60,000 on the upside. So that's where my short call strikes are against my long puts, which are now much further down, like the 35,000 area. So I'm keeping them as my crash protection, yeah? Because I don't know where Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin breaks 38,000, there's room for it to go much, much deeper. So I don't want to make any sort of predictions on how far it can go. I don't think that will happen. I think the most likely thing is it's supported at 42. And even if 42 breaks, I think it's supported at 38,000. So that's my base case. But as a trader, you have to be willing to change your view and accept what the market's telling you, basically, right? So for me, I need to have some protection. So I'm maintaining that protection that way. In terms of how I'm playing the short vol trade, because I think vol's the wrong price, I'm selling simple expression. One of the expressions that I've done is a short straddle on June expiry. So I sold the 48,000 straddle on June expiry because June vol is so elevated. I sold that at a price of 13,800 roughly. And I think if we get a 20 to 30 vol collapse in that straddle or in that volatility, that straddle should be worth closer to 10,000, right? As opposed to 14,000. So I think there's a quick $4,000 to make by selling one contract of those straddles, just to give you round numbers. I think that straddle's headed down to about 10,000 basically. And I quite like the break evens of that straddle as well, right? If I sell that straddle, the break even of that short straddle, you're looking at close to 34,000 on the downside by June, yeah? And on the upside, you're looking at 62 basically, right? So you've got a decent wide range for Bitcoin to chop around in for you to not get into too much trouble on that straddle, right? So for me, the delta trade right now, even though it looks like buy the dip's probably the right trade, I've got more conviction that sell the vol is a better trade than buy the dip, right? Because sell the vol will work in a bounce. If the market bounces from here to 48,000, vol will get obliterated, yeah? So I don't need to buy too much delta when I can just sell vol and know that if the market doesn't bounce, but it just stabilizes, then that vol can also get crushed, right? So for me, risk reward wise, short Vega right now is the better trade than long delta in Bitcoin, okay? And then what else? So in terms of, what drove that bid to vol, obviously it was a bunch of put buying, whether it's liquidations but clients have been buying puts as well, right? So I think there's been a decent amount of put buying. And what was interesting to me is that put buying has been in longer dated maturities as well, right? So not just short dated maturities. So I found this chart up on Twitter, largest 24-hour open interest changes by strike. And you had December 32 puts, December 24 puts as the biggest changes in open interest, showing that there's activity going on in those puts, okay? That's some pretty long dated protection people are buying, basically, right? Normally, when you go to protect, you go a bit more short dated, but here you've got people buying longer dated puts as well. And this demand for puts is basically triggering, obviously, is triggering a move in skew, right? So if we look at the skew curves in Bitcoin and bring up this graph here, I'm going to slap a few extra maturities on there. So normally, as you know, the skew normally trades for calls, but if you see here, I've got maturities from 7-day all the way to 90-day, and all of these maturities have got volatility above for the puts. So you've got the 7-day puts trading 21 vols over, the 30-day puts trading 10.5 over, and the 60-day and 90-day trading 8 vols over. So that's the 25 delta puts trading above 25 delta calls. That is not very common for Bitcoin, right? So that's quite a big deal. Like often the short dates go crazy, but the longer date, the more medium term stuff still stays for the calls. But even now we're starting to see a bit of a change here where people are feeling like they need that longer dated protection, and there's value in owning those longer dated puts as well. So that skew has really moved up across all maturities. Yeah. All right. And then this is another nice kind of way of representing it or looking at it. If I switch to here. Genesis, guys, Genesis Vol's another great one to look at vol analytics of crypto. And they kind of view it a little bit differently, and they show you for all the different expiries, this is the shape of the smile, the shape of the curve. And you can see it's very much skewed to the put side, right? It's the puts that are trading on that higher vol level. And it doesn't normally look like it, normally skewed to the calls, and it's very much shifted over to the puts there, basically. Yeah. Right, so that's kind of that. And then the last thing really I wanted to mention on crypto is the spread between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And kind of what that tells us about what we think the outlook for Ethereum might be. Because obviously that spread just went completely ballistic. So again, the best way to look at it is to just zoom out a bit. So if I go to a monthly, you see here, you were in this sort of low region for a long time. And then when we broke 0.45 kind of area, it's just skyrocketed. It's gone straight to 0.08 basically, right? And that was like a bit of a long-term, on the long-term monthly chart, you can see that is a bit of a level basically for that spread, okay? So the long-term target is, has been reached in a very short space of time. Could it go higher? For sure it could. Yeah, I mean, Ethereum's got a very strong narrative backing it up. But for now, to see a bit of consolidation and a bit of sideways to pull back wouldn't be overly surprising. So just something to be aware of, that major levels have been obtained on the long-term chart there, basically, right? So if that breaks though, if it starts to break aggressively through 0.085, God knows where it goes, right? It could go back to the highs, it could go to new highs. So something to be aware of, not suggesting to anyone to go short Ethereum, but just know that maybe the outperformance of Ethereum over Bitcoin may take a breather, right? And that's kind of really all I have to say on that point. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this content, please subscribe to our channel, give the video a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'd also encourage you to sign up for a free trial to our live and interactive Macro Insight Zoom call. As part of our trading community, as well as the call, you'll also get access to our Telegram chat and our weekly market reports. To find out more, you can also connect with us on the socials. All the links are at our website, www.options-insight.com. Thanks.